Academy Library has just banned 381 books, and I'm number 16.
Mm,
So, yeah, it's a very, very weird feeling.
Academy
I've
Library
been banned before, I mean,
mm.
just banned 381 books, and I'm number 16. Whoops, I heard myself over
You
there.
did. You echoed for a second. I took care of it.
Okay, and um and so it's a really weird feeling living in this country right now. I you don't I mean some people write poetry and write books for all sorts of reasons. Some people are revolutionaries about things. Some people want to enact change in various ways. I think you don't write a book or you don't write a poem if you're satisfied. I don't think anyone's ever written a poem when everything was just cruising, because when you're eating ice cream, you're not writing a poem, right? You're eating ice cream because it's ice cream. When you don't have ice cream, that's when you write the poem, right? I wish I had ice cream. And um and so people do want to change the world in different ways and work, but I've never considered my work destructive. I've never considered my work as anything other than, hey, have a donut. Hey, we can all have donuts together kind of thing. And so to see that, my work has been deemed unacceptable for doesn't matter if it's a small town or in this case the Navy, it's kind of a culture shock. It's kind of a gut punch in some ways. Um, on some levels, I'm super honored to be part of these because there's some great writers. And some writers do wear it as a badge of honor that they've been banned, and that's that. And I guess one could say that and go, yay. And I don't know, maybe now that I'm a banned writer, some people will, think I'm a lot hotter than I was. Oh, she's a banned writer. But but internally, and the reason I want to bring this up is all writers are different.
Mm.
Internally, it's kind of melancholy. It's kind of sad. Um, because I've always, you know, I don't, I'm not an American exceptionalist because I mean, whatever, but this is the country that I was born in, and my parents, and my did raise me here, and my grandparents did come from across the ocean, and there must have been a reason. And um, I really like In-N-Out hamburgers and donuts, and English is a really cool language to be writing in. And there's a lot of good stuff. Nobody has an extra, our large soda is better than any other country's like extra large, right? Because our large soda is like super large. And so, these are good things. These are good things. We know how to do a large soda. Um, and so seeing this happening in the country right now, makes me kind of sad about things. And so for the people listening, it's a lot of times, it's not that cut and dry as to what it means to be an artist and a working artist in this world here. So, if you have any, I will be, I think there's a couple people from Tuesday here that I recognized, but there's a lot of people who were not here on Tuesday. And if you're online and you're taking classes online, go you, because you're probably working harder than you probably have day jobs and things like that, and you're kicking butt anyway, and you're coming here, and super, super props to you and thank you. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be repeating the entire talk that I gave on Tuesday. And then but I am going to change what I read because I think that I want to give you something that the other people didn't get. And so with that all being said, what I really, the thing about it is when I'm online too, I know that there's a chat function. So you don't, it's like if you can raise your hand, great. If not, dump a question in the chat. And, you know, if you have any questions you want to ask, If they get too personal, I'll just say, no, they're not paying me enough to answer that question. But if it's anything else that I can possibly um, answer, I want to help you with your writing. I really hope that my presence here inspires you and maybe can answer some questions that might be in the back of your head. And if you have them, ask them, and maybe I can help there too. I'm profoundly honored by PCC for asking me to come over here. And it's kind of nice. I mean, even though I'm over at SMC and we're just down the street, just down the freeway, we hardly ever interact. And so it's nice to see my colleagues here at PCC just doing an amazing, amazing job. So thank you for all of that. So, um, my apologies to those of you who have heard this before, because if you were here on Tuesday, the first part's going to sound damn familiar, okay? But after that, I am going to probably read a couple new things. And again, I'm looking forward to any questions you all have. Um, okay, so here we are. I'd like to thank PCC, Pasadena City College, the Department of English, and especially Kirsten, Professor Ogden, for bringing me here for National Poetry Month, which is all of April, and PCC's Poetry Day, which is for you now. And Nadia, I saw that. If you have Nadia, I saw that. So dump your questions in the chat and we'll go ahead and get to them. Awesome. All right. So it is a pleasure and a gift to be speaking to all of you. And it's been incredibly surreal. I think I was talking about this earlier. I just got a book banned. What the heck? I was invited to speak at PCC just a few years ago. Do you know what year I came over when I was here the last, Kirsten?
I think it was just like maybe like 3 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Not long ago.
I
Yeah.
mean, the plant you gave me is still alive. I mean, the orchid's gone, but everything else is still alive.
Great.
And uh, but since then, the world did not go the way we expected the world to go. By now we were supposed to have fusion power, like cities under the sea, jetpacks, we, I don't know what we were expecting, but we weren't expecting this. Um, and last time I was here, I felt honored that you recognized my work. This time I'm feeling honored by that, but also honored by your courage and your trust in literature and in the arts. It's different now. We're all, I don't know. Has PCC, like I know that Cornell just lost like $1 billion grant, my alma mater, Cornell. And, education is just getting hammered right now. And luckily, as English folks, we're still thought of as kind of necessary. But you never can tell. There's so many changes in this world. And with every change, people are feeling all sorts of different ways and reacting at different ways. And, you know, depending on who they are, what they believe in. But the one thing everybody has in common is very, very few people right now are mellow. Yeah, very few. Everyone's kind of going, what is coming next? We had the tariffs. We don't have. Oh, that was the other one, right? We were supposed to have tariffs. We were supposed to right now be paying like a lot of money for things on Amazon and other places. But the tariffs, except stuff from China, have all gotten canceled for 90 days. But who knows what's going to happen next week? And so, how do we even think in this world? Here, you're bringing me here, and I know that you brought me here, and you know that I'm a person of color, could be and a writer. Writers are dangerous, apparently. It's really funny, right? It's like the Navy. They talk about talk like a sailor, right? Haha. They won't even read my book. Anyway, I'm just kind of still salty about that. But anyway, I'm queer, I'm trans. All of these things are, things that are in the news right now. We're all worried about healthcare. And I don't know. I've always seen Greenland on the map, and it was always Greenland. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Um, and, you know, again, the tariffs. What's going to happen to Ranch 99? how much it's going to cost because because there's this really cool sauce that I'm using right now. It comes from it's for Chinese chicken rice and it's from China, and I don't know, I can't read it, it's all Chinese. Got this dude on this old guy on the cover, on the label, and I put it into my rice and it tastes just like chicken rice. And Americans aren't going to come up with that stuff. No, it's not. It has to come from China, and I don't want to have to pay too much money for it. And so things are just changing. And I can just continue chatting. I can chat, chat, chat. Um, and I think all of you are kind of in this where there are these global problems that you don't want to think about, and then these small problems that are just in your face. And how does that even work? Um, and I don't know. I mean, when I used to be teaching, when I used to teach even just a few years ago, uh, when I guess a couple administrations ago, I was worried about where you'd all be in 5 years. Those of you listening, students, where you'd be in 5 years. Now I'm worried about where you're going to be next week, where you're going to be tomorrow. Things are just changing. I have no idea. I have no idea. And still, with all of this going on, we're here on Thursday night, and it's April, and it's National Poetry Month. Woo! And it's PCC's Poetry Day, and don't let them tell otherwise because your online experience, it is today. Um, and so what's going on, right? The world's falling apart. Hey, poetry. Um, and yet I think it's perfectly appropriate. I think uh, that despite all of this, poetry not only belongs here, poetry was born of this. This is where poetry is thriving. It's April and it's spring, and it's also when taxes are due, but the weather is beautiful. And the climate, well, the weather's beautiful, but the climate's messed up. And we're only talking about the physical climate. We're not even talking about the social and political climates. With all of this going on, though, I can give you one thing that you cannot worry about. You do not need to worry about. One thing that I can guarantee. One thing that you can just go, don't need to worry about that. And that is poetry will be there for you. Poetry is there. T.S. Eliot called April the cruelest month, but that didn't stop him from writing The Wasteland. And it wasn't because he was Eliot. It was because it was poetry. Poetry Poetry doesn't stop for changes in season. You got poems about winter, you got about poems about summer, about spring, you got poems about war, you got poems about peace, you got poems about, children and parents, you got poems about rich people, you got poems about poor people, you got poems for everybody. Think about anything, and there's probably a poem for it. There is always poems. No one can ever know the future. I agree. And as a teacher, this bothers me because as a teacher, all I want to do is give you the skills to go forward in your life. That is prime directive. I want to help you as much as I can. And when you don't know what the future is, it's hard. But I can tell you one thing that makes me feel good about being what I'm talking about today. We'll talk about poetry because I can guarantee you the future might seem less certain than ever, but whatever the world is going to be, poetry will be there, and I guarantee that. Poetry is inevitable. It's unstoppable. It's like kudzu in the South. You're not going to get rid of it. You notice how books or movies or even pieces of art can be banned? But you almost never hear anybody talking about banning a poem. I mean, okay, I talked about this Tuesday. I'm still trying to figure this out. How would you even ban a poem? How would you ban a poem? You can memorize a poem. Poems, a poem happens. Boom. It's like as fast, you smell the ocean. You remember your grandmother, a poem. Boom. How do you ban that? Poems are elusive as that Thursday night Remember, when you went to that club with friends, and it was amazing because you could be yourself for the first time. You had glitter on, and you danced with somebody who had hazel eyes, and they smelled like jasmine, and you were out and proud, and the music was pumping, and you never saw that person again. Most poems can fit in a page or two. Yeah, there are exceptions, see John Milton, but for the most part, poems can fit in a page or two. You can write them on a napkin. You can put them in your pocket. You can write a poem on your phone or on a notepad that you keep in your club purse. A lot of poems aren't even difficult to memorize because, again, poems were, in fact, poems were used in old sagas and legends because they were designed to be memorized. More than any other genre, poetry works with memory. Poetry works with our breath. Poetry works with the way we parse our language. It falls onto our tongues naturally. And so a lot of times, so much of a culture would be written in poems. And so in case the people came in and took away all your stuff, the poems would survive. And so your culture would be there. And in some ways, that would allow your nation to keep going. Right? See the Mishnah. Yeah. And yet, poetry doesn't, the weird thing about poetry, it does all that for us, but it doesn't ask much in return. Poems for both writer and reader don't take the commitment of a novel or even a short story. Just read them. It doesn't even require us to be true. We can lie and write poetry. We don't need to be literal. We don't need to use our names. We don't need to be brave. We don't need to be wise. Poetry is weird. We can suck at poetry and still write a poem that affects somebody. I mean, we can suck at life and still write a poem that someone needs to hear. In fact, sucking at life is a prerequisite for poetry, according to some people. What I'm saying is you don't need to be a winner. You don't need to be good enough to write poetry. Poetry meets you where you are. It's the strangest thing. It's there when you need it. And um, you can just show up you don't need to put makeup on to write poetry. And when time is precious, knowing that there's this art form that you can make or you can appreciate at any time, and you can think about your first love or your last love or your almost love or that crazy folk song that you used to sing, stuff that would just pass by and suddenly they sparkle because it's poetry. The spices in your favorite stew, that clearing next to the lake where you caught your first bluegill, or that last jar of guava jelly in the fridge that you're never going to eat and throw out because your grandma made it and she's never going to be able to make anything for you again. It's poetry. It might be rough. It might need editing later, but do you know how long it takes to write the rough draft of a novel? Now, speaking of novels, my novel has been delayed another year because what ended up happening with my novel is my mother died while I was in the middle of writing a novel. When you write a novel, it takes a couple years, and that's a huge slice of your life. And if something happens, boom, suddenly, I got to tell you, I'm not the same girl I was, since before my mother died and now. And when you're not the same girl as you used to be, you can't write the same book anymore. So I've had to start over. It's been rough. And novels are that way. Sometimes they're too big for your life sometimes. But poetry, poems have been there every step of the way through all my stages of mourning, through all my stages of grief. Poems never demand anything. And again, I think maybe this is me projecting, but I think one of the greatest gifts poetry has to offer is companionship. Write poems, you're never alone. Now, if novels are these giant spaceships and cruisers that take you on some faraway journey, poems are that friend you can always call after a night out and you maybe drank too much and you lost your wallet and you're at the club and you need to get home. Poems, poems, you matter to poems, and poems will let you know that you matter to them. And that's wild. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? I read this poem by Emily Dickinson many years ago. And the first two lines have been my companions ever since. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Hear those words, you're never alone again. Well, there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd banish us, you know. And I read those lines and I felt understood. It came from a house where my father was not the nicest person to me, and I didn't want to be found out. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog, to tell your name the livelong day to an admiring bog. You tell yourself when you're alone that you don't want to be out there. And sometimes you feel like a loser for doing that. But then Dickinson says it, and it's poetry, and you're listening, and you still doubt yourself, but you can get through. You can get through the night. You don't feel alone. I spent most of my childhood feeling like a nobody. I still do quite a bit. And Dickinson's poem gave me not just companionship as a nobody, but the way she said it made me feel understood. Sure, I'm nobody. Who are you? Didn't give me the scenery and plotting and intrigue of a novel, but that was where I was going to fill. That's where I filled the rest in, with my life, my writing. And no matter how often I feel like a nobody in the future, which will be quite often, I'm never going to be alone. Now, another thing I like about poetry is that it's probably the most non-exploitable art form there is. You don't need special equipment. You don't need a special degree. Um, you don't need any of that. You can like take a stick and write a poem in the mud. You can make a poem up with your friends. You can remember a poem from childhood without subscribing to any sort of information service. AI might threaten the publishing industry, right? We talk about AI. You've all seen that, right? AI art, AI music, AI threatening the music industry because AI songs, AI threatening the publishing industry because you can get AI to write romance novels. You can think about AI with the acting industry where you can digitize a voice or a face and do it that way. But does AI ruin the poetry industry? How? There is no poetry industry. There is no poetry industry. Yeah, some people have made careers out of poetry, but most of us don't do it that way. We survive by teaching. We go to readings and we share our work. There's no poetry industry. No one's like, yeah, it's um it's just like so like non-capitalist. I mean, the economics of poetry are completely wrong for capitalism. I mean, completely out of whack. You can't control supply when somebody can write a poem at any time. And even if you're talking about, well, RYKA, anyone can write a poem at any time. But what about those classic poems? What about like Shakespeare? What about like you're like really important poems? Well, yeah, go to the used bookstore. How much can you find Shakespeare for? Nothing. 50 cents. You get Hamlet. What the heck? What the heck? I was at the AWP, okay? I was at the Associated Writing Programs, all of those folks, and they're all selling their journals and everything. I got one book for free. The Quran was given to me for free. And along with some dates by some nice people, here, have some dates, and here's a Quran, and go. And it's free. Yes, please take it. We'd like you very much to read it. Thank you. Think about the power of that work. And they were giving that for free. The economics are weird with poetry. It's like getting, it's like the most powerful laptop you can have is going to be free. You pay for the shitty one and you have to, but you get the free one. I mean, it's weird. And so, you know, and it's because inspiration from humans, it's so abundant. Um, you can't market that. Again, I lost my mother a couple years ago. My father is still around and he's in good health. Now, again, things haven't been great between my parents and me. I'm not going to go into too many details. I write about that in Seasonal Velocities. It's horrible. I don't want to get triggered right now. Triggering myself would suck. Um, but um, but if you're Asian and you're supposed to be the firstborn son, and you kind of turn out like me, well, you can see how there might be problems. Um, Anyway, I went to my parents' house to help my father pay his income tax. He's paying it online because he wanted to be sure the payment went through. So while there, um, I was looking for something that I've been trying to find for a long time, an AM FM radio, because I want to listen to Dodger games and Dodger games sound better on the radio. And yes, I know the Dodgers visited the White House. But to listen to something on the radio again gives you that timeless feeling, right? You hear it's time for Dodger baseball, and suddenly you're thinking of Vin Scully and Fernando Valenzuela and all that kind of good stuff. Well, anyway, my father told me to take my mother's boombox. It's got AM, FM, but there's also a CD player. Okay, fine. But I get home and the AM radio is working just beautifully with just the right amount of static. But there's a CD player there. And I realized that there's actually a CD in the CD player. And handwritten in Sharpie, it says ukulele class number 2. My mother played ukulele for a while. My grandmother played ukulele. Uh, my mother did. I play. And so I see that and I hit play on the CD. Dude, this Hawaiian music comes out. And I'm recognizing the songs she'd been practicing before she got sick. I still remember the songs, right? And this is her music, and I'm never going to hear that again. Never going to hear my mother like this. And I'm not holding it together. And yet I'm so grateful that I have the CD and I'm having that music now. Now, I don't need to tell you exactly what the songs were on that CD or what my mother was like. I don't need to tell you what brand of ukulele she was using or the model, because that's not the point. Because when we're talking about poetry, your songs and your loved ones and your ukuleles are all your own, because the economics of poetry are wrong for capitalism. We can study poetics, yeah. We can go to school and we can learn history and techniques, and that will enhance our appreciation and understanding of poetry and help us with our craft. But poetry, capital P, poetry itself can be written anywhere, spoken anywhere, because it's changing the world everywhere. It is very, very unlikely that any of us will write that one magic poem that unlocks everything, all understanding. We see each other deep into each other's soul, and it's all prosperity, and there's free Costco pizza for all of us. I mean, it could happen. I don't know. You might write a kick-ass poem that does that, but it's just not likely. I mean, there've been a lot of poems written, a lot of incredible, amazing poems written, actually. And then you can look around, though, and say, well, the world is still what? Look at the world. It's still the world. But think of how the world would be if we didn't have poetry, if our words stayed well behaved, if they did what they were told, if one person's feelings did not entice another's to weep or dance or celebrate, if if your words of love did not reach another and in their hearts make them yearn as well, think about what the world would be. Poetry is changing the world all the time. Poetry reminds us, you know, Angela, Sabina, Mel, Brian, all of you, Sadie, Akila, Mingja, Chiara, Gary, Gwen, all of you watching right now. It is reminding all of us, Gia, Maria, Nadia, Michelle, that we are not too insignificant for the world. Poetry makes the world ours. See, it makes it personal. Makes us, or maybe it reminds us that the world is inherently personal. Now, there's this poem written by a poet you may not have encountered before, because she wasn't known as a poet. She was known as a pilot. Her name was Elizabeth Magid, and she wrote it for her best friend, Marie Michelle Robinson. Now, both Magid and Robinson were proud members of this experimental World War II team of aviators called the WASPs. And I know that sounds like Marvel, but it's not. It's real life. It's real life. There's a group called the WASPs. They're real. And so the WASPs in World War II, see, the Air Force wanted all of their male pilots to fly combat missions. And so the WASPs, the Women's Air Force Service pilots, would fly support missions, non-combat missions, deliveries, and cargoes. They would also test fighters and bomber planes before they would go out for delivery. And they even towed aircraft for anti-aircraft practice. They would like tow a dummy aircraft and have people shoot at them. Over 1,000, about 1,074 women became WASPs over the years. 38 of them died in line of duty. Robinson was killed while training in a B-25 bomber. Now, at the time, the WASPs, even though they were doing all of these things, were civilians without military status and benefits. That wouldn't happen until 1979. So Marie Michelle Robinson was unable to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery. So while waiting for the transport plane to her funeral, Elizabeth Magid wrote this poem, Celestial Flight, in memory of her comrade. There we are. Since then, celestial flight has become a staple at funerals for female pilots and has honored Robinson's legacy in a way that no hallowed graveyard ever could. So this is the poem Celestial Flight. Celestial Flight. She is not dead, but only flying higher, higher than she's flown before, and earthly limitations will hinder her no more. There is no surface ceiling or any fuel range, and there is no anoxia or need for engine change. Thank God that now her flight can be to heights her eyes have scanned, where she can race with comets and buzz the rainbow span. For she is universal, like courage, hope, and love, and all free, sweet emotions of vast and godly scope. And understand a pilot's fate is not the thing she fears, but rather sadness left behind, your heartbreak and your tears. So all you loved ones, dry your eyes. Yes, it is wrong that you should grieve, for she would love your courage more, and she would want you to believe she is not dead. For you should have known that she is flying higher, higher than she's ever flown. This poem was written from someone to someone that I will never know, And both of them are far more heroic than I ever will be. And learning about these pilots and the wasps and the circumstances greatly increases my appreciation and gratitude that it's been written. But that's not the main reason this poem affects me so. I don't want to fly an airplane. Never did. My father was an aircraft mechanic, but I never felt that call. But I do want to soar. And this poem reminds me how much I want to aspire to live a life that climbs. And it makes me wonder if I can live a life that's worthy of such words. Trans and queer and Asian and all of these other things you can think about. Am I doing what I love? Am I living my life? Or am I letting others ground me? Will I listen to the naysayers in this world that do not recognize me? Or will I ascend and become what I know in my heart I was put on this planet to be? When my life comes to an end, what will I be doing? What might be said about me and the choices I've made? Now, to be honest, I've only encountered this poem this past weekend. I had no idea I was going to talk about it, but I had been thinking about what I wanted to say to all of you, what message I wanted to bring to you on this day of poetry and this month of poetry. And this poem, this moment brought me everything I wanted to tell you into focus, because poetry works that way sometimes. This poem rather, is doing far more than teaching me about others. From where I'm standing, I can imagine so many of you seeking your own skies as well. And hearing poems like Celestial Flight reminds me how much I want to encourage you and applaud you and implore and impel you and any of you to fly higher as well. That is why I became a teacher. That is why my colleagues here became teachers. And that's why I'm so excited that I've been able to speak with you all now. Poetry Month is our month together to revel in words, not in words that are teaching about us about places and things. That would be textbook month, and that would be boring. Nor words giving us directions. That would be cookbook month or IKEA month. Not even to fill us with faraway stories and worlds. We have novels and stories to do those beautifully, and novel writing month is November. This is April, though. And it is National Poetry Month, and it's PCC's Poetry Day. And so while everything that is happening outside is happening outside, it's happening as the world is being the world, here we are today talking about poetry. And with all that going on, I'm not going to tell you that I believe in poetry more than ever, but neither do I believe in it less than ever, because I believe in poetry as ever. With so much changing, there has to be some things in our life that go on as ever. What you do not want to forget when it is great or when it is difficult or anything in between, something that you can just count on. And no matter what, no matter where life takes you, poetry will be there as ever, as always, for you. So with all of that being said, I would like to go into a reading, but before I want to go into the reading, I think I want to hear what some of you had to say, because that was a really long speech and I'm kind of tired of hearing my voice. I want to hear what y'all have to say. So can we have any questions from the chat room?
Yeah, that was beautiful. Nadia, you had that opening question about what inspired you to be a poet or writer from
Let's,
RYKA. Do you want to
oh,
elaborate on that, or you can unmute yourself if you want to?
hi Nadia, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Sweet. Yeah, watch that cough that's going around.
I'm sorry, that was my cough, Dr.
Okay.
Ogden.
Stay away from Professor Ogden. She's gonna
Yes,
get you sick.
absolutely.
But Nadia, so your question?
Yeah, so the thing is, I am inspired by you. So like I never heard of you, but I wanted to know how what inspired you to be like a poet writer because I'm actually a PCC student, so I'm taking an English 1A class, so I want to at least pass that class, hopefully.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I will tell you, I'm going to break a stereotype for you, okay, Nadia?
Okay.
I might be Asian, so you might think like all my family is doctors and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm the first person in my family to graduate college.
Oh well.
Um, my father is a mechanic. He's a, and nope, I didn't grow up with too many books or anything like that. So I always felt a little bit behind. Even in when I went to graduate school, I always felt everybody was just a little bit ahead of me. Um, so but I wanted to tell stories. And I went through years of thinking my stories weren't good enough. But I kept coming back to wanting to tell stories and wanting to tell stories and wanting to connect with people. I think what inspired me to want to become a poet and a writer is to participate in life. I wanted to give something back to people. And I'm I'm an it's like I'm I'm not talented the way some of my classmates and friends are about other things. Like I didn't have all kinds of privilege going up, but poetry was and writing was something I could do. But even then, back then, Asians didn't weren't supposed to be writers. I mean, sorry, I'm just going to break it down. It's like that's not something we did. But I still felt it was. I still felt the words in me. What inspired me, I think I always loved words. I always thought if I could find the right words, I can make people understand me better. Am I
Well,
breaking up?
No, we
oh,
got you.
sorry.
O-
That was me coughing.
Okay. So, anyway, so what it is, whatever you feel is your passion, it could be writing, and if it is, it's a nice thing to do. But whatever it is, you might feel like you're the only one doing it, and it can get kind of lonely sometimes. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is your life to live. And I just decided that if I'm going to be a failure, I'm going to fail at the thing that I love doing. And and I kind of went into it with that. And I got very fortunate to have some very good teachers, and people recognized my work. And I still don't know how that happened, but one thing I decided to do along the way was I'm going to be as good as I can. I'm going to work. I'm going to read. I'm going to do these things. I can't change the way people think when they look at me, but I can give them the best words I can give them. And again, if you're a writer, great. If there's other things that you're doing, great. But my feeling is when you love something, you see the best in it, and you want other people to see the best in it too. Does that
Yeah.
help?
Yeah, that's help. Thank you very much.
Good luck with what's your major, Nadia?
Studio arts.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it's one of those things where the other one too is sometimes people will not exactly see your vision. That's okay too, as long as they see something. If you do arts, you do your art, and your art is resonant, and it has that sort of power that you put in and that kind of creative force behind it. It's not a guarantee that people are going to get you 100%. That's not the point. It's
Mhm.
like having a kid, and your kid's not going to be you. Your kid's going to go out there and react with other people. So when you go out and if you're getting strong reactions from people, if people are crying, if people are laughing, if people are thinking quietly, but they're really into it, that's a win. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Cool. Thank you, Nadia. And then let's see
We have one more
next.
from Sabina who
Hi,
asked,
Sabina.
Yeah, Sabina, do you want to ask yours about reading reviews of poetry? Expand on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I want to expand because I'm a student of Dr. Ogden's in her 1B class, and she'll tell
Hmm.
you if we have to write a synopsis, a 5 to 10 sentence synopsis, I write a 5 to 10 page synopsis. So I'm
Hmm.
hard at editing myself. But I noticed so one of our assignments is to write a review or to of some of your poetry and eventually your book. And I'll put my what I think the meaning is of the poem. And then I'll go and after I post it, I'll read other people's, and I'm like totally like, I didn't even see that. How did they get that out of this poem? So I was wondering, not so much in terms of like, or just like when you read a review, do you read it like, oh, maybe they didn't see this meaning, or how would they even think that I was writing about that, or something like that? Because I'm struggle with poetry in the sense that what I think is the meaning or the context, it might be totally different when I try and read and reread poetry. I love poetry. It's just sometimes I can be so off the mark. And I was
Hmm.
wondering how you interpret reviews of your work from maybe more professional reviewers. And how does that work and I don't know, do you get angry or just like give them some grace, or I don't know. That's kind of
Okay.
the question.
There's two parts to this question. The first thing is when you're writing a poem, you're not writing how to build a bookshelf. You're writing a poem, and poem is art. And there are no correct answers in art. And that one is one of the ones that that was the most important lesson I learned, that um, my poems have a life of their own. They're going to meet people, and it's going to be like having a kid go off and meeting the world. They're going to develop in ways and they're going to, and other people will see things that I never saw. Just like your parents don't see everything about you. You don't see everything in the poems you write. And so when they get things that come out, if they're getting something that a strong reaction, they like your poem, they're into it, then that just speaks to how well you raised your poem and how well you wrote your poem. But your poem is not going to share the same side that it shows the writer. So what I would tell people before is I don't think of myself writing a story or an instruction manual with a poem. I think of as a poem much more as a mandala where you go into it, and if you do your job right, they're going to come up with some vision. You don't know what vision it's going to be, but you're going to hope that they get some kind of response to it. If I want people to get what I'm saying, I'll write an essay. But poetry, a lot of times, is something where I'm a lot less I'm a lot less vested in people getting things out of my work because, again, you might think you're being clear, but you have, but readers, I mean, I'm a teacher. I can just tell you, it's like you've got no idea what people are going to write about your assignment. Okay, so that's that. Now, the second part of your question, Sabina, and I'm just going to tell you just a very simple writer's answer. I don't read reviews. I don't, because when I'm done writing, it's done. Now, if no, that's pretty much it. I really don't. Sometimes if I know the review is a really, really good and supportive review, I'll read it just to get an ego boost because I'm having a bad day because I just burnt lunch. But the thing is, in terms of writing, and a lot of writers are going to be different about this. I think I'm a bit of an outlier here, so just take my words that way. I am I I am unsure of myself. I'm insecure. So I don't read reviews. I just do my best to write the work. And then Book Riot just called my work, named me like one of the 8 or 9 most divisive pieces of writing in literature. I'm going, what? What? And then I get this note saying, oh, it's like, don't, you should just, I really like your work no matter what people say. And I'm going, what are people saying? But, but I don't, um, now, but if people write me a letter, that's different. If people take the time to write me a letter, then I'll read it. Um, because they've taken, because the letter is directly addressed to me. But reviews aren't usually addressed to the writer. They're usually just addressed to other readers. Well, let the book, let the poem exist in reader space. If there's a direct message to me, then obviously I'm going to go ahead and respond to it. Um, Unless it's like horribly abusive. But those times are there, but they're rare. Those times are there, but they're rare. Um,
That's awesome. We're close to our
you.
closing time. I just, before Rika reads us a little bit, I just want to share.
I don't mind not reading any. I mean, we're here just to chit chat. If you just want to talk about work.
That's wonderful. Angela's
Uh,
microphone is busted, unfortunately, but she wanted to share that how you described and feel about poetry sounds almost just like how I describe and feel about books and stories. And I think that's really cool. I understand that too, that love of words, that trust that it'll bridge the gap a voice often can't. Great comment, Angela.
Yay. I
Yes.
so I mean, it's really just with poetry, when you are writing a poem, you're creating space. More, I think with poetry, rather than sometimes delivering a story, you're creating a space for the writer to fill, for the reader to fill. You don't give them everything. When you're writing poetry, think about the gaps you can leave for the reader to participate. And if you can do that, what you're doing, for those of you who are poets, a lot of you worked at it, but I think a lot of you also were born with a certain facility for the language and certain talent. I think a lot of you are born with a certain talent. Not everyone gets that one. Now, that doesn't mean you're like super because, you didn't get somebody else's talent for, something else. But words are your talent. And so when you write a poem, what you're doing is you're guiding somebody through the adventure of words. And so you guide them and you hold their hand. And then sometimes you let them step and find their poetry interlaced with yours. And so when you're working with poems, a lot of times this is a place for readers to discover the poet in themselves. And if you can spark that in a listener, you've done a beautiful, magical thing. So
I love
that
that. Can I ask, just as a kind of a closing question, but other people, if you have a question, put in the chat before we have about 5 minutes left or so. But Professor Brown had to go, but she always asks this question of our visiting writers,
mhm.
share with our students. What are you reading? Who are your influences? And then also pop culture wise, are you watching anything, listening to anything that's really inspiring you right now?
Okay, so right now I am reading a book. I'm reading this writer that is that writes absolutely nothing like me. Uh she's an Icelandic horror writer. Her name is Hilda Knutsdottir. And her work is just being translated into English, and I'm reading some of her advanced copies, and they're going to be great. She writes horror. I hate horror, but she writes this relentless thing, and I'm going, I'm not having fun. But it's amazing, amazing stuff. And so sometimes you want to write out. So I'm reading outside of my comfort zone right now, and that's kind of where I am with that. Now, what else?
What else in
Oh,
the
so
pop
anyway,
culture
just
world are you listening to or are you watching that might be inspiring you?
there we go. So The Night Guest is the name of Hilder's book. Okay. Um, Completely weird right now. I'm on YouTube watching this person, a farrier, uh, changing horseshoes and like shaving the hooves off of horseshoe, and it looks really smelly. And I can maybe count the times I've touched a horse and man, let alone ridden one. But just the carving and oh, that's infected. There is this one where it's like it just went and exploded into this like smelly mess of abscess, and you're going, oh. But on the other hand, I'm just watching. I'm getting such a feeling of yeah, that's how you write. That's how you write. You take this feeling that's encrusted with grit and dirt and filth, and you try to make it so it holds weight. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, and I'm watching a lot of anime, too much anime, so too much anime. But
And any closing questions or burning desire questions? People have been a little shy and they want to ask that last question of RYKA.
well,
Hold that silence sometimes is helpful for people, but
okay.
okay, great.
So then I just wanted to also say, just every time I have screwed as a writer, okay, as a writer, every time I've screwed up, it's been trying to write what I should be writing. Every time I've done well is when I've written what I wanted to write. And so one of the nice things about being a writer is doing what you do is actually rewarded. And I hope you all find jobs and arts and positions and places where you can just be yourself because you deserve it.
Fabulous. Thank you. How about a wonderful round of applause for RYKA AOKI?
How about a wonderful round of applause for the PCC students? Yay!
Yay, PCC students. And Mel says, thank you for sharing. So great to hear about your journey and how you mean to inspire. So love that. Thank you.
You take super good care, everyone.
Thank
And
you, RYKA. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording now and have a wonderful spring break.
oh, it's your spring break too, huh? It's mine too.
Yes, enjoy. Yes, we all need
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Enjoy.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Bye.
Thank
Fabulous as
you.
always. Thanks, Nadia, for your
Uh,
question. Sabina and Angela, thank you.
Thank you.
That's
So you,
fabulous. My friend, oh my God, I'm so excited to. I heard new things in that lecture too. It's so wonderful.
that's something about me. I never really gave the same. I never give it twice the same way.
Oh my gosh, gorgeous, gorgeous. Thank you so much for that.
You're so welcome.
I appreciate you. I'll be in touch with
Be in
you.
touch
We will
and
see you soon.
good. And if there's any time down the road where you think, you could,
You're always at the top of my list, so I will be definitely in touch to have you come back as always, especially when
well,
the book comes out too.
when the new book comes out, I'll let you know, okay?
Yeah, fabulous. All right, my friend, take care of your throat. We love you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some rest. That's the last I'm gonna. I
All
got
right.
through though. I got through.
Thank you
Did
for
it. It was
doing this. Thank you so much. And to hear about
You're
that
so welcome.
van is stunning. Like,
Oh, it's right
it's
before she came on. I just read about it on Facebook when she posted. I was like, what the hell?
it's so disheartening. Or you're doing something right. That's
Yeah, but it's powerful regardless, isn't it?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. But thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. I truly appreciate it. It's great to see you again.
You're so welcome. Great to see you as well. Take care, everyone. Be